Hey everyone, Johnny Johnson here, coming to you from my office in Jennersville. We wanted to make a quick little video here just to kind of recap this past Saturday morning's Next Gen team training. Whether you were with us or you missed it, we just wanted to make sure that you either heard or reheard what we wanted to have communicated this past Saturday morning. First, let me say we are so excited to have all of you as a part of our Next Gen team. Yes, we have a staff that are paid that are the Next Gen team, but we view all of you as integral and important parts of our Next Gen team. What we talked about this past Saturday was this big problem that 50% of our kids who grow up in our church, who grow up in our youth ministry, they walk away from the faith when they get to college. 50% of our kids walk away from the faith. They walk away from the church when they get to college. That's not great. And one of the things that we talked about is that we need to do something about this. And we have this mission statement that the Next Gen team has come up that we want you to hear and really take to heart. And you're going to be hearing us say it and hear us repeating it over and over again. This mission statement is this, that the Next Gen team at Willowdale Chapel is all about nurturing authentic and lasting faith in Jesus in the next generation. We're all about nurturing authentic and lasting faith in Jesus in the next generation. Well, how do we do that? We're going to be talking about these three specific anchors over the next coming years and months and years. And these are the three ways that we want to help nurture that authentic and lasting faith in Jesus in the next generation coming up. The first focus is that we want to focus on a grace-based gospel rather than a behavior-based gospel. Grace-based gospel rather than a behavior-based gospel. We want to focus on integration into the overall church rather than separation. And the last one is we want to focus on partnering with parents rather than outsourcing spiritual growth. Now, this past Saturday, we hung out on this idea of this grace-based gospel, focusing on a grace-based gospel rather than a behavior-based gospel. And here's this quote that I want to read to you because we need to understand this gospel. The gospel, by definition, is good news. That's what the word gospel means. And there's this good news of Jesus that we are entrusted to communicate to our kids. The good news that Jesus is the Son of God who died, who rose again from the dead, and sits in heaven at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. And if we believe in Him, that we receive eternal life. We go to heaven one day when we die, but we also get this life abundantly here and now. We want our kids to understand that good news. But here's this quote from this book called The Sticky Faith Launch Kit. Here's what it says. It says, key to what faith looks like in a family or congregation is the way that the gospel is understood, taught, and most importantly, how it is lived. Key to what faith looks like in a family or congregation is the way the gospel is understood, how we understand it, how we teach it, but most importantly, how it is lived. So how do we live out this gospel with our kids? In the way that we discipline them, in the way that we talk to them, in the way that we react to their questions, in the way, the faces that we make at them, our facial expressions. Do those communicate grace or do they communicate behavior, like you should perform in order to be welcomed here and accepted here? Now, one of the interesting things about this is that our kids don't understand that gospel all the way, this good news gospel. They have different understandings of the gospel. One of the simplest and easiest ones that you've heard us maybe talk about in the past, and we'll keep talking about these things, is we have teenagers who understand the gospel of sin management, where it's not about the good news of Jesus as much as it is about just managing their sin and knowing when to be good and knowing when to be bad and knowing how to hide things. It's just all about managing their sin. What happens here is this turns into a religion that sociologists call that teenagers and kids view God as a moralistic therapeutic deism. Moralistic means be nice. Therapeutic means it's all about me feeling good. Be nice, feel good. And deism, yeah, there's a God, but he's uninvolved. He's not involved in every part of my life. So we have this moralistic therapeutic deism based religion that a lot of our kids understand. Probably the simplest and easiest way to describe how our kids view the gospel, a lot of kids in the church in the United States, is it's a Santa gospel. It's, he sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. Jesus is coming to town. You better be good, for goodness sakes. We have this understanding where Jesus is kind of like watching all the time and God is watching all the time and just mad at us. But we have this Santa gospel. Now, what happens there is we have this equation that it ends up looking like this, that in order to get salvation, in order to go to heaven one day, it turns into faith plus works equals salvation. In other words, yeah, it's faith, but then you have to do all these other things to actually get salvation. Well, that's not good news. That's not the gospel. The gospel equation is this. It's that salvation actually equals faith plus works. We put our trust, we put our faith in Jesus, and we get salvation. But that also means that we do those works, we do those good things that God would want us to do, that Jesus would want us to do. but it's an expression of the love that we have received from him. The hard part is that that doing sometimes turns into how we actually receive God's love. That's not good news. And so we closed the session on Saturday morning before we went off into our teams, and we asked these two questions. What do you need to do, what do we need to do to help kids and students discover and deepen their understanding of the gospel? What do we need to do to help kids and students discover and deepen their understanding of the gospel? And the word discover there is really important because we want them to experience the gospel. Yes, we're going to teach it to them. Yes, we're going to make sure that they understand it, but how do we help them discover it? And lastly, we asked the question is, what do you need to do to deepen your understanding of the gospel? Maybe you have a gospel of sin management or a moralistic therapeutic deism version of the gospel or a Santic version of the gospel. What do you need to do to help deepen your understanding of the gospel? Hey, we're so excited to have you on the team, and we cannot wait to share more sticky faith findings and more sticky faith things that we have for you coming down the road.